data for use in some farm program. So thank you very much. I look forward to the questions today.
Well, thank you to all of you for your thoughtful testimony and raising, really, I think, really important issues. Let me start with Dr. Earls. The world was a very different place 5 years ago when we wrote the last Farm Bill, and from your position now, through your leadership, when you see how, firsthand, how quickly everything is changing, how is our understanding of artificial intelligence in the agriculture sector different than 5 years ago? Where are we going specifically? Could you talk more specifically about what we need to be paying attention to and doing?
Sure, yes, that's a great question. So when I think of what's changed in the last 5 years, I think the biggest change has been for actually software developers. And what I mean by that, this has upstream consequences for everybody that's going to consume the products from AI. But what that means is it's a lot faster to go from nothing to product today than it was 5 years ago. And I'm talking about, so for example, today it may only take a day to build an AI model that counts destructive versus beneficial moths on a piece of paper from images, right? Whereas 5 years ago, a smaller group of people, of skilled individuals, software developers, would have taken them much longer to do this. So what that ends up meaning is that we get more products to market faster for agricultural AI startups and industry. So what hasn't changed, though, I think, is that AI models still require data and they require human supervision. And what I mean by that is, I mentioned earlier, someone has to go in and punch in a computer what they see, and that person is an expert, right? An agricultural expert, and those are still in high demand but low supply. So being able to connect those agricultural experts to the software development process is something that is changing quickly, but still needs to change faster. In the next 5 years, I think you'd asked what I see going into the next 5 years as well. I think even in the last week or 2 weeks, we've seen a huge change in how AI and humans communicate. So I'm going to give a quick example of this and what I did last night. So I sat down and I took my phone out, opened up an app, and I said, you mentioned you generated your comments through AI. I asked it, I said, I'm a soybean farmer outside of Des Moines, Iowa. I have some small worm that's infesting my crop. I'm near a river. What do you think it is? And it came back with 5 different possible responses within 3 seconds. And it said, I might be able to help you figure this out if you show me an image. So first, I did this with my voice. I said this to the AI. The AI responded with its voice and text. It then gave me an option to show it an image. This is just like talking to a person, right? And so I show it an image of what I know is to be this certain type of worm, and it correctly identifies this type of worm. So to me, this is how we communicate with AIs is changing rapidly, and they have this soon-to-be role, if not already role, of being AI advisors. So I think this is something we need to think a lot about is what are the recommendations that they are making, and how are we training those models such that they're giving reliable, robust recommendations, and how are we regulating what's coming out of the models, which may end up being easier than thinking of how farm advisors are actually doing, but we also need to take that into consideration.
Well, thank you very much. And Mr. Christian, when we look at these innovations, of course, none of them matter if they're just in the lab. They have to be out in the hands of farmers. And to do that, we'll need a partnership between researchers and the private sector with a willing and able workforce also. So could you speak to what you hear from others in the private sector about their reluctance to invest in agricultural technology, and how can we use these advances to bring new high-paying jobs to our states?
Thank you for your question. I think so. Given the need to feed a population of 10 billion globally and America's leadership, there's increased interest from the venture capital community in the space. 10 years ago, it was less than $1 billion. At its peak, we hit 12 billion. Year to date, venture capital has invested close to 6 billion in the sector. I will say, though, a lot of venture capital investors recognize this takes longer. This is more tough tech than traditional tech. So the sales cycle and product cycle takes longer. There's more risk aversion across the field. And so that's why you've seen less than 3% of venture capital dedicated to ag tech. We think we need to improve that. And there's a huge amount of opportunity for the public sector and private sector to be in partnership to accelerate this adoption cycle and get more venture capital into the sector.
Thank you very much. Senator Bozeman.